I've already done this, so what I can freely do now is do apt-get install i3. Now when you do apt-get install i3, you're gonna install i3 WM, which is a Windows manager. And it's a Windows manager that allows you to tile everything essentially to your screen. i3, okay, I think is done. I think it's done. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna actually need before rebooting is polybar. Now, trust me guys on that, you really want a polybar because that enhances the overall performance. Now, the i3 on itself is like the Windows manager that displays Windows, and polybar is the bar that's gonna appear like that. So you're gonna have different workspaces, you're gonna have the current window name right here, you're gonna have the total disk volume, which you can actually mute and unmute. I think you can, there's also a way to make it bigger and smaller, but I'm really not using sound inside the VM. Then of course your layout, RAM news, CPU news, ETW news, and the clock, which is so everything you need. Now I'm gonna also add a little modification that can display turn zero interfaces for VPN, but that's on the to-do list. So let's go on. And yes, this is gonna be uploaded to YouTube Sandbox KWT. So yeah, it's gonna be on YouTube. Alright, so that's about it. Now we have the two main ingredients, which is the i3WM, and we also have the polybar. Now what we're also gonna need is something called nitrogen, because nitrogen is gonna actually create a wallpaper for us, because when you use an i3, you can't really set up a wallpaper by yourself. So you're gonna need nitrogen for that. Alright, and now what we can do is we can reboot. So I can do sudo reboot. You can also maybe try to log in, log out and log in back in, but I think reboot makes more sense and I prefer to do it. Alright, so booting the VM now. Now when you have the login screen, it's gonna be super essential, like here. You're gonna of course type your username password, and it's gonna be super essential to choose i3 from here. So that's what we're gonna migrate into. Alright, so login, and now you're gonna see that screen is completely alright. So there's no i3 config, so you have to create your own config, right? So that's the case. I'm gonna click enter, and now you can choose which main button, keyboard button to use for managing your windows. Me personally, I stick with Alt, but it really doesn't make any difference. That depends on your preference. Alright, so I'm gonna go with Alt, and after this we have the i3 running. Now at the first glance, it doesn't look good because we don't have much here. We don't have a wallpaper. It seems to be lagged out, and that's why we need most of the stuff. Now if I open, click Alt and Enter, I'm gonna automatically have a CMD there. And see how nice that happens. Boom, boom, boom. See how easy that is. I can close them like that. But I'm gonna go over that in a little bit. So first thing what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna change to my browser. Actually, I can do it here. I can open Firefox. Go to LCQT GitHub, my GitHub repo. And inside this GitHub repo, you're gonna find one repository, which is Kali i3 setup. Now on this repository there, you have an i3 config file, and that's the config I use. So of course you can take a look at it. You can of course modify it, find out which works for you, which one does not. But essentially these are pretty much the default keybinds, while I remove this bar there. And I also auto start things like polybar, nitrogen, XFCE panel, and so on. So I'm gonna get that right here. I'm gonna open a terminal and go to cd config, my home folder, and then home Kali, and then config. Then on there, you would actually want to go into i3 and then vim the config. Now there's also a config, I think, inside etc i3 and then config again, but the one you actually need and want to use is the one which is located here, right? The local one, because that's what's rendered. So here I can simply do vim and config. I don't need sudo permissions for that. I can mark everything, delete everything, set the mode to paste, and simply paste my code. Now there's something which I saw, and that's the PCOM. Essentially, PCOM is like the GPU acceleration. It gives more, I think, transparent effects over things, but I don't really need that. And for a VM, it's not that big of a deal, so I'm just gonna remove it, and that's about it. All right, one more thing I want to actually see and take a look at is about the terminal. Now, usually the terminal is with mod and return. That's how you pretty much engage with terminal. And if you change that here, you can replace i3 sensible terminal with any terminal environment you want. And essentially, the best for me terminal emulator is the KDE Konsole. That's by far the best OG OP terminal emulator for me. So I'm gonna go for that, but in a little bit. All right. When I have my config ready, I want to reboot once again. So sudo reboot, because I want to make sure all changes have taken effect, and I just want to make sure I'm doing what I need to do right. So testing one step at a time, not going for one big config and then debugging issues, but rather make sure it's planned and we know what to do. All right. So here it's i3 login, and there it is. Now it looks much better. First, we don't have the boring bottom bar. We have the polybar right there, which now gives us more UI. We also have the XFCE bar, and that's the big part, because you can essentially start individual XFCE programs, even though you are using i3. So I am using i3, but you can start and pinpoint pretty much everything you need. Now, with the panel, I can work with it as I'm using XFCE. There's no difference at all. I can simply do right click, panel, preferences. Now on the preferences, I'm gonna untoggle the walk panel, and I'm gonna move it down. Like that. It's kind of buggy, but it works. Okay. I'm gonna walk the panel again. I'm gonna make it a little bigger, like that. Then on the appearance, I need to modify the panel as well, because I don't really enjoy its current configuration now. Now, as a background, I can try something like a black, and I think now it's better. But of course, you can play around with different settings, see what works for you, see what does not, and so on. For example, this one is also good. Okay. Now on the items, let's go here and change things a little bit. Now usually I don't need this. They just waste space, so I'm gonna remove them. Remove. Then I don't need the clock. I have clock here. Right. Doesn't make any sense to have two clocks. Okay. Then of course I don't need the power management, because it's a VM. Now if that was a real machine, which was essentially for my work, or the real guest OS, I'm gonna of course leave that be, but for now we don't need that, and that as well. Okay, for the audio, I usually don't display audio on the VM itself, so I'm also removing that. And don't forget, you can actually mute yourself from here and remove the audio. Okay. Now from there, you have a bunch of things which are needed, and I usually leave them be. Now for the generic monitor, that's something hidden. I don't know what exactly that is, so I can also remove that. Now on the status tray plugin, that's the network interface right there. Usually I leave that on. Why? Because from here it's more easy to go to your wireless configuration. It's more easy to go for if you plug in external Wi-Fi adapter. It's more easy from here to set it up, to see if it works, to connect to Wi-Fi. It's easier to go for WireGuard like that and to work with the networks. So that's why I just leave that to be. All right. Okay. Now there's two separators, because as you can see, there's a blank space. One of the separator is essentially inside a transparent mode. So what I can do is remove that to be like a real separator. and just move it to the next side of the system tray plugin. This is gonna again make a distance between the tray plugin and the CPU graph, which for me works good. Now on the left hand side, essentially we don't need the desktop because that thing does not work here. Why? Because we are using i3 and that thing now essentially is powerless. You have no power there. Now that thing works fine, that also works fine, that also works fine, and that also works fine. Now the thing I do not want is essentially the the workspace switcher. Why? Because I have one there, which is more badass than the one here. Now again, we have two separators. You can remove one, you can remove, or you can make one transparent if you want, and pretty much now we have a good bar. Now with Alt, Shift, and Q, we can simply close any window, the current window we are on. And now from there, I want to start something, and from there, I want to make sure, go to panel, panel preferences, items, and double click on Windows buttons. Now on the Windows buttons, I want to make sure that I have pro button labels and toggle off the group options. Why? Because when I have many windows with the same nature, I don't want them to be grouped because it happens to be confusing for me. All right. Now the next thing we want is the nitrogen. So with Alt D, you can start up this menu on the very top. And now in this menu, you can essentially do and start any program like nitrogen. I'm gonna run nitrogen. I know it looks ugly, but bear with me. You have to click preferences, then add, then go to your file system, user, share, wallpapers, and just select this folder. And when you click OK, you're gonna have all the wallpapers from all the folders. Now you can choose from any of the wallpapers, like that one there. Click apply. And now we have to tweak with the settings. Now I think by doing that we zoomed. I think it's fine. No, it's not. Zoomed view. And there it is. Perfect. Now you can close nitrogen. And to make sure everything now works, I'm gonna once again restart the system, and I wanna see when it boots if we're gonna see the same thing, the same panel, the panel there, the wallpaper being set up, and to have this fresh new environment. So sudo and reboot. Boom. Alright, is Sliver now your go-to C2, or do you not like it? For the poor partial, no, I love Sliver. I love it because it goes for evasion. It has a lot of modules, and the developers have thought about evasion when doing Sliver. So I'm a fan of it. I'm really a fan of it. I use it here and there. So even though it lacks PowerShell, I mean, you can use assemblies for that, you can use BOFIS, and it's not that big of a deal. And alright, boom, we have our fresh new environment, which looks quite nice, I can say. But now we are not finished, guys. Now, what we have to do now is to make sure we have Konsole, we have maybe a Sublime, and we have maybe a Visual Studio Code, and to make things better, right? So now first things first, we can start things from there, but we can also do Auto Enter and start the terminal. All right. So here I can do sudo update again. Let me make the font bigger so we can see better. And then from there, upget install Konsole. I think that's the proper name of the application. Come on. Now you may ask why I love Konsole that much. There are various reasons. First reason is essentially the nice amount of themes there are. I'm gonna show you why. It looks great. The second thing is essentially the saved sessions. You can SSH and save it, so you can simply click and go to your session. That's the second thing. And for me, it's just nice. There's a lot of, you can customize as everything in KDE. You can customize anything on it. That's why I love it. So from there, now we can go to panel preferences, items, and now on the terminal emulator, double click. Now there you can see the different options the terminal emulator uses. The default one is that, then you have the root, and then you have the PowerShell, which is nice. We want that. But what I also want is to have the console as the default one. So I'm gonna add this. I'm gonna remove that. Yep. And there it is. Now console is by default our terminal. So when I started from there it is. We have a console started. Good. Now what we else can do is go to config, then go to i3, then vim config, and now from there you can simply replace i3 sensitive terminal with console. So when that happens, you can do alt enter, and I think we need to somehow reward i3, but I'm not sure how. Let me reboot it. What can go wrong? Third time. I know it's not Windows, I know, but at the moment I'm really not sure how to reward i3. At least I don't remember. And I did some micro calculations in my mind that restarting the machines would actually be faster than me researching how to reward i3. There it is. Just I finished the sentence and we're done. So I click Alt Enter, and there it is. Now we have the KDE Plasma. Alright, now what we can do is do Control Shift and name. That's gonna trigger that menu you see here. Now on this menu you can do create new profile. Let's do that. But before it, I want to actually toggle off something, and that's the session toolbar and also main toolbar. That's disappeared. So when you also remove this with Control Shift and M, you can see there's a clean interface. Okay. Now on that, there is the SSH manager I just showcased. Now if you add SSH connection there, you can simply toggle on the SSH manager, and you can from there directly launch your session, which is badass to me. That's why I love it. Okay, now from there, settings, create new profile. Let's call that nothing. You're gonna see why. Create one, then go to settings, then go to manage profiles, then go to nothing and set as default. Now when you create new profiles, I already suggest you to pretty much create new profiles, because you can, if you mess up, then it's just a matter of you messed up the profile, not the best default one. So always create a new one. Now when you go to your profiles and on the nothing, double click and you're gonna land into the settings. Now go to appearance, then go to get new, and the default ones are nice, but I want to showcase something else. And click and type, nothing. There it is. Install that, then Alt Shift and Q to close it, then navigate nothing and go live. Boom. There it is. Now we can also do edit current profile. Go to again appearance, then choose a different font. Let's choose maybe, I think 12 is fine, or 11. Yeah, 11 is good, or 12. Yeah, that's good. That's fine. Okay. And now see that. See how clean that is. See how nice that is. See how everything smooth and clean. Now if I open a new window, boom, see how badass that is. Now with Alt and or your i3 key, you can essentially move into different workspaces like Alt and 1, Alt and 2, Alt and 3, Alt and 4. And if you create a window, like for example, I want to create a window for workspace 4, for example, a terminal, then it's saved. And I can move to different windows, as you can see, 6, 7, 2, 3, and so on. But if workspace is empty, then essentially it's being removed if you move away from it. Now it's kind of a matter of getting the habit of doing that, but when you do so, you're gonna, at least for me, that boosts my productivity. Now the next thing is to set up your, let's say, template for engaging with working with i3. For example, for me, always on the third workspace, I always have a browser, even though no matter on the i3 on the Linux or i3 on the Windows, because there is i3 on Windows, as you can see. And it makes me super easy to record and edit videos, because now I have OBS here on the second monitor using workspace 4, And here on the workspace 3, I always have a browser, and the workspace 1, I always have the VM, the things I want to actually show or work on, right? Here on the Kali, I do exactly the same thing. 3 is always a browser, 9 is usually a VPN, for example, 2 is usually a VS Code, and 1 is usually a terminal with Tmux. Now I have usually one terminal like that with Tmux running, and I'm gonna also modify Tmux. And here I have the terminal, here I have VS Code or some kind of editors and so on. Here I have browser, and here I have VPN. All the rest are for temporary purposes, I can say it like that. Okay, with that, I can open the window, the workspace 3, open a Firefox. Now from there, go to again the same repository, which is the i3 setup on my GitHub. This is also the color scheme for the nothing. I just linked it, so if you want, you can check it out onto the KD store. There it is. Okay, there's also a VPN.sh. Now, usually this is not the best script. If you ask ChatGPT, it's gonna make it better. And I at some point actually need to do it. Essentially, VPN.sh is a script that is gonna show VPN IP on the polybar if you connect to VPN. That's one of its reasons. I have the wallpaper, okay. That's the one, that's the Kali wallpaper. But I'm looking for something else, which is not there. Yeah, fine, okay. So let me download VS Code. Download that. Download for as a Debian package. Then open a terminal, cd into downloads. Now from there, sudo git kj -i code. That's gonna essentially install the package as it is like a MSI. Yes. Okay, good. Okay. Now do Sublime install Kali because I'm not sure how to actually do that. Oh, there's an apt way for doing that. Perfect. Okay, good. We can install the GPG keys. Okay. Then of course we want a stable release. And then we can also update and install Sublime Text. Okay, perfect. And now usually I want to replace the default text editor, which is that, with Sublime. The main reason for that is because I want to have the ability to essentially save my session if I just close the document. Now I can remove that, and there it is. Boom. I don't know why the UI is that broken now. Perhaps maybe I can do something about it. I'm not sure. Now the good thing about Sublime is that you can actually do, let's say, you do something, you do ifconfig, and you save some output and paste it there. Okay. Now I can close the document without saving anything, and at some point in future, after a reboot, I can simply open up Sublime. I said, open up Sublime, there it is, and it's gonna automatically be, I'm gonna automatically have all the sessions with all the files, with all the output I needed. So that's why I love Sublime and I prefer it rather than the default text editor. And it's quite fast, see that? Boom, it's quite fast. Okay. Now I don't know why the UI is that broken. Perhaps we can do something for the icon itself. I'm sure there can be a way to, yeah, there it is. Maybe do, I don't know, Sublime. No, that's the only option. Maybe I change it to something else. But to which one? I'm not sure. Yeah, there it is. Now it looks better. I think. There's again some form of Yeah, we can also do that. Now it works even better. Yeah, now it's perfect. We can also again bring back the old icon. So we can do that. Go to Sublime text. Okay, save. And there it is. Now it works fine because now there's a separation. I'm not sure why, but then we have a group of 3 items and it's not in the middle, and I think aesthetically it makes more sense. Perfect. Okay, now we have the text editor there ready. We have VS Code also installed. And now on the VS Code, I enjoy essentially two themes. First is the color theme of GitHub. So you can browse additional themes, type GitHub Dark. You can also go for GitHub, where it is, GitHub Dark. There it is, this one, or Dark Dimmed, this one. I usually prefer Dark, but of course, feel free to do anything. I'm just giving you my way of doing things. Now, this theme to me looks super badass. I enjoy it so much. And now you can go on to the themes again in file icon themes. Now again, go to install the additional file icon themes and then go to materials, the first one, icon theme, which for me works quite nice. Trust, install, and you are good to go. Yep, there it is. Now let's say you open a folder, let's say you open your home folder and see how badass that looks. So, sorry, there it is. The bash script is like terminals, you have vim info separate icon, all the folders have different colors, and essentially I enjoy it. I enjoy this icon theme. Okay. Now the VS Code is also done. And now the last thing we need to finish up the setup is to have a Tmux session. Because Tmux is super important, at least for me. Now before Tmux, I want to actually install something. That something is called xsel. Not Excel like the Microsoft Excel, but xsel. Why? Because xsel is a clipboard utility that allows you to share your clipboard globally. For example, I can do ifconfig. I can pipe this output to xsel and do -ib. What ib is gonna do is it's gonna actually save the output to the global clipboard, which means that I can go to, for example, my Windows system. I can open, for example, a notepad, and here I can paste it. And there it is. See how fast and easy that is. So if I have some kind of an output from there, I can simply pipe it to xsel, and I have it on my global keyboard right there. I can simply go, paste, and use the output. There it is. It's as easy as that. Hi, how you doing, mate? Now, moving on, we have the xsel, which is super nice, and now we need Tmux. So we already have Tmux. Tmux is by default integrated into the Kali most Linux systems, but now we want to tweak it. Right, that's the main point. To tweak it, to make it better. And here I don't find my Tmux configuration, which was what I was looking for. But where it is? Think a sec. Where it might be? I think I found it where it is. I'm gonna open a new browser. I'm gonna use this one there. Like that. Now I'm gonna also upload the config file to my GitHub repo, so you'll be able to see it without any problem, so don't mind that. It's gonna be uploaded either way. So you're gonna have it. Right. But now before going into Tmux and why I actually use Sublime, is because in order to make the most out of Tmux, you would actually want to have the Tmux TPM, which was the plugin manager. Now with that TPM, the installation is quite simple. You can essentially git clone that or copy and paste this command. This is gonna essentially clone the plugin manager into home folder .tmux plugins TPM, and now you can set up your config file. Now here you can do vim and then do home folder tmux.conf, I believe. I think that's tmux.conf, and essentially paste my config there. All right. There it is. Now I can right and quit, do Tmux, and now when you're on Tmux, do a special key bind, which is Control B or Control A, depends on how you configure it. Control B and capital I. So it's Control B, Shift I. Now we have to wait a little bit. There it is. Boom. See the difference now. See how my Tmux works like. And now I have a lot of presents for you guys. This config I just have, it has a lot of benefits to it. Now, first benefit is that you can essentially use your mouse. So I can click with the mouse on the different panes. See, my hand is here. I'm using the mouse, and essentially you can change between Tmux desktops. All right. The next thing I have for you guys is a default copy paste. So, for example, you have an output with Tmux. Let's say a bigger output. Let's do something like ls minus. Let's do clear ls minus la. All right, and then do ifconfig. And now you want to copy both of these outputs or how many you have. You can use your mouse. You can simply start to select and then use the scroll wheel, select all the things you want to copy, and then just release the mouse button. Boom. Now that's automatically copied to clipboard. And if you can see, boom, I can paste it there. And not only you can paste it there, it uses xsel, which means that you can actually paste it on your Windows system or any other system you have control over. There it is. It's on the global clipboard. Now I can paste it anywhere. So if I have a VM, additional one, I can simply also paste it there, which makes so badass, so easy. Usually in Tmux, you have to go with copy mode to copy all the lines, then you have to go into paste mode to paste all the lines, and then that becomes a mess. At least that's how I view it before. But with that, you can simply copy all the output you have, go there, paste, and that's it. It's so easy. Now again, the mouse is again for the different panes. So essentially I can do something like I config there, move it with the mouse, and then type here. And this also is applicable for vertical things like type of panes, like ID, who am I've configured. There it is. And that makes the configuration super nice and super efficient. Why? We have several key things. Now with i3, everything is super structured. Everything is all the time on you. Keep in mind that with i3, you cannot simply minimize a window. You cannot do that. With i3, everything you have is on here. So on the one, I always have my Tmux terminal, which has many sessions and many panes and many windows. It is my operational terminal. On the second tab, sorry, I usually go for Visual Studio Code, where I need to develop something on my Packer, on my, I don't know, let's say on my Haunt agent or on my Patreon or how anything. So I'm developing something on here. Usually I'm using the second pane for development. On the third pane, I'm using browser and burp suite. So I usually split it up. Or I can use second for burp, third for browser. The fourth is always for some kind of a text editors. And then all the fifth, sixth, seven, eight are buffer spaces. And on the ninth, I usually have just a VPN. That's about it. So let's say that's your main working thing, but you want to do something else. Of course, you can start a new terminal, do it there, exit it. There it is. Of course, you can go to pane number 4 or 5, start a terminal, do something, exit it. So here is my main terminal window. Of course, you can do that with Tmux, but that's just a preference, and that's how my environment looks like. So 1 terminal, 2 code editing or software development, 3 browser or burp suite, and 4 some kind of a notes or text-based stuff, right? To note something, to paste it, and so on. Now these are buffers 5, 6, 7, 8, and here is the VPN if I have any. On the Tmux page, you've already seen what that looks like. Let me show you what my Tmux config actually looks like. So I can close all these windows, and there it is. Now here, you can see we have this xsel thing. Now, how that works is that when you do some kind of a mouse, essentially select mouse selection, it does that automatically by going into that mode as I mentioned before, the copy mode. It copies automatically, and then using Excel, it gets it to the clipboard. Now, how that happens with that young selection mouse. Now, when you have this plugin, then you can essentially select anything with the mouse, and it's going to be copied. It's just like that. Then, of course, I have some Tmux themes because you can see this is not the default Tmux, how it looks like. On the Tmux theme, I have just the date, the clock, and my username. Of course, this is highly, highly customizable. So you can yourself go to the Tmux store, plugin manager, see what plugins works for you guys and set them up because this is highly customizable. But when you combine Polybar, i3, and this Tmux, I don't think you need anything else. I really don't think you don't need anything else. Because on the one hand side, i3 makes you super organized, as well as Tmux. Everything's on place. You know where everything exactly is, and you avoid the issue with having 10 or 20 tabs here and to search for the right terminal tab or the right program to open. So you don't have that problem here. It's fine. You don't have it. Because using i3, everything is on point. You know where exactly everything is. And essentially by moving with Alt and keys, it's super easy to navigate to anywhere. Combine that with Tmux, combine that with the XFCE bar to make it beautiful, because having this bar is nice, at least for me. I think it makes the nice system. So that's my environment. And that was about the video. You can now copy everything. Of course, you can modify it. You can, yeah, thanks, Ponch. You can also update it, customize it, get everything you can from it, and also make sure to integrate it to your own, or sorry, your own, because at the end, it's about yourself and how to make you the most productive. I cannot say what works the best for you guys, but if you find anything from this video useful, you can of course copy it, integrate it to your workspace, which is gonna make me super happy because I know I've helped someone become more efficient, more productive, and just feel better by sitting and working at the desk. Yeah, there it is. With that being said, I'm gonna modify my repository with Kali i3 setup. I need to add the Tmux config. I need to also make sure to modify a little bit the i3 config there, and I need to also modify the setup.sh. So I'm gonna do that, not now, but I'm gonna do it maybe today, maybe tomorrow. And with that being said, I wanna say thank you so much for sticking by and watching this video, and I really hope that was useful. Of course, special thanks to all my painters which makes this content possible. I appreciate you so much. If you also have further appreciation, make sure to become a Patreon and access things like my Shadowburn Packer, which rates modern EDRs with a little bit tweaking, of course, the home situation for Mythic C2, and also a bunch of internal documentations like setting up Elastic EDR and more. Yeah, with that being said, thanks so much for watching. I'm gonna upload this to YouTube, and I wanna wish you a nice evening. Yeah, bye bye. See you next time.